At this moment, a certain set of circumstances are here for me to use into my liberation, resisting to the forces, the impulses that oblige me to act. And it is now that I work into my liberation. This now apparently travels through constant changing circumstances. And these constant changing circumstances offer me different types of circumstances for me to work my liberation. And it is always now that I'm working my liberation. It is always now that I'm withholding, pausing, stopping the investment in my delusion, and tuning more and more with silence, with God. Always now. This constant now, through the different types of apparent circumstances. Only difference in those circumstances is the amount of importance that I give them. And as I get exposed again and again to these different circumstances, with higher degrees of importance given and lesser degrees of importance given, silence slowly is achieved. The absence of investment, of interest, the ever increasing dispassion. So once again, good morning everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Just reminding that we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions directly to me. So time and the usage of time. This is a very important subject because it makes all the difference. Time is something which is very slippery. It passes very fast when you're not paying attention. There's different aspects of time and how it is perceived. And if distracted, time disappears very fast. If focused, it increases its length many times. So the importance of this is the capacity to use time, to make it last longer, to use it better. Because one of the tendencies is distraction. And if you have a spiritual discipline and meditation routine, at least you are making sure that in those periods you are focused. But for those who practice meditation, they can see clearly that during the meditation session, doesn't matter how long it is, there is something in common, which is distraction versus concentration. It is a constant attempt to maintain concentration in the technique. And the mind just wanders away, wanders away. Why? Because it is running away from that stillness. It's looking for its preservation, for its survival. So you are there, sitting. You know, it's time for meditation. There's no way for you to forget that you're there for meditation. And still, your mind is struggling to distract, to go with the thoughts, to travel somewhere. And you are, if things go in the right direction, you are constantly pulling it back. But it's difficult to arrive at this point of going in the right direction because many times you just lose yourself in the thoughts and time flies, and then you remember again, oh, I have to get back to the technique. This is more common. So if you are there specifically for meditation, the posture is there reminding you that you are there for meditation. It is time for meditation, formal practice of meditation. And there's only one thing to do, which is focusing on the technique. And still you are fighting with distraction. So what to say with the rest of the time that you are not sitting in formal meditation? The rest of the time will just disappear in a flash. And you being entertained with all which appears to be happening around you, just embedding yourself in these daily routines and your time being taken away. because at that point the reminders are very less. And even you've probably created this separation. This is time for meditation, and this is time for the rest. There's no continuous spiritual practice. Should be. So one of the most important aspects is time and the usage of time. Because it is with time that you make it count or you don't. A second can be very long in the right focus. And 1 hour can fly just as a second if you're distracted. So meditation has one of the aspects is developing the meditative state continuously. So you're increasing your sittings, you're increasing the time you spend meditating, but you're developing the continuous meditative state that with time must take over all the waking state and even the dreaming state, but that's another story. So that meditation can continue 24/7. It is a mood, it is a state. So when you don't see your practice as continued, as 24/7, then you put the times of your spiritual practice into tiny boxes, and the rest of the time is free for being distracted. And then your time just flies. And even your perception, probably you believe that you're using your time in a good way, but very far from that. And this makes all the difference because it is really a continuous now that is offering apparently different sets of circumstances that hit you in different ways. And in those ways that it is hitting you, touching you, it is revealing you how important those circumstances are for you. And they are giving an opportunity for you not to invest in them and to increase your silence. Of course, not investing in them and increasing your silence has something in between that is chaos overflowing. Because when you cut investments, inner chaos rises. And if you continue not to give, not to invest, it will overflow and then it becomes lighter. And then more peace, more silence. And that more peace and more silence will eventually enable you to go deeper into your inner chaos, cutting more and more investments. So each moment has a different set of circumstances and it keeps on changing, keeps on changing. And that's good because you'll be able to see more and more. and has nothing to do with reshaping behavior. It is renunciation. Reshaping behavior, it's based on, how do you say this? Containment of certain expressions. And that makes only that pressure will increase for that containment. And eventually it will explode and that behavior will come much more intense. And it's not about that. Because in containment, there is this blocking attitude. And it has nothing to do with blocking. It's letting go, giving up. This allows you to access the chaos underlying that, the beliefs that assist all that, and you're able to see them. And your cuttings, your attitudes will become more clear, more whole. So for those who have already a routine of meditation, it cannot stop here. That routine is not static. You have to envision to increase the length of the sittings and increase the number of the sittings. And as you are doing that, certain things will have to fall behind. You will have to let go. You cannot practice both at the same time. And that's a transition. And never forget that these words are for those who seek liberation only. For those who are seeking liberation and enjoying life, these words are not fit. And these are not seekers of truth also. They think they are, but they're not. They're still very much interested in all of this, in all of these circumstances to extract that happiness, that purpose, that meaning, that, oh, life is beautiful and this and that. They're not really interested in the source as the source, but as another option in their menu. And that is not the path towards liberation. Not at all. So if you have a meditation routine, the time of the sittings must increase, and the number of sittings also needs to increase so that you get all absorbed in your meditation practice, in that mood, so that it can extend to the other periods until it becomes 24/7. And these sittings will prepare you for those periods that you're not sitting, that you're not paying that much of attention, but you have developed the mood so you can recognize the invitations prior to your investment in them. So When you act on impulse, you're not thinking, you're not reflecting, you're not focused. So you're not seeing. You'll see only after the investment has been done. So you don't reach the source of that need. There's no liberation there. There's no acknowledgement. Nothing. It's just automatic. But if the meditative mood is there, you will see the invitation. You will see the urge to react to it in a certain way. You will evaluate, why is this coming? What is this feeding? Is this feeding my illusion? And you will have time to cut it. Whoever is observing around will not see anything of this, of course. We'll just see some impression, something coming to that person, and that person just staying quiet, not reacting. We'll not see the underlying process behind it all. Or else you'll just keep on reacting, just going with the flow. It is very common these days. People, seekers, judging things by, is it flowing or is it not flowing? But flowing and not flowing, it's just a matter of illusion under illusion, in the sense that, well, if the destiny of the body is going to that direction, if this has to unfold, it doesn't mean that it is real, or it has a purpose, or it is important. None of that. It just goes into that direction. So if you were struggling for things to go in a different direction, it wouldn't flow. You wouldn't feel that flowing because it has to go into that direction. And for you, there would be friction because you're pulling to one side, things are pulling to the other side. So there is friction. And going with the flow is learning just to move along with that which is unfolding. But is that liberating? No, if your eyes are still in the circumstances, in the best use of the circumstances, there's no difference. Less tiring, probably, but still, you're still much dependent on the circumstances, much dependent on the result of the circumstances, and they are your support. So, no difference. You're still after the end result of the circumstances, which is what you call happiness, but in fact is what is called circumstantial happiness. So going with the flow or fighting against it, in terms of clarity and liberation, it doesn't change much. So the angle is always to preserve stillness. And what is blocking the preservation of stillness? And what usually blocks the preservation of stillness is your investment. Like when you're meditating and you're focusing on a technique, a thought arises, attention moves towards it. This is investment. Subtle investment, at the root cause of all investments. And then you pull back your attention to silence, to stillness, to the source. But what has made you? What has made the mind to the attention to follow the thought? Interest. Many, many beliefs that Happiness is circumstantial and is somewhere out there. And just stopping this movement, either in the thoughts or in the actions, will go against the deep beliefs that happiness is a fruit of circumstances, circumstances that, if you don't control, will bring suffering and misery. And as you are stopping this movement by the correct understanding, misery will come from within. Because those deep beliefs that if you don't control, if you don't do something, you'll be miserable, those deep beliefs will come out strongly. Behind them, sadness. Just sadness that needs to overflow. Once you start paying attention, you will be seeing that for those who are more committed, you'll be seeing that you have been wasting the majority of the time. And some things are very difficult to grasp unless you try to focus more and more. And well, it's always about the thirst, because where the thirst is intense, the efforts and the creativity will develop in proportion. So you can use a lot of reminders of ways to maintain focus at all times. And you will see that it's very tiring, especially in the beginning. Mind doesn't like to think, doesn't like to, it just likes to flow, to be lost in those chains of distraction, because there's no effort there. Thinking is not a, there are thoughts there, of course, all the time, but real thinking, it's very difficult. It spends a lot of energy. And your body, well, your body is wired to conserve energy, not to waste it. This is why you just react. It's just chains of reaction, constant ones. Because real thinking, evaluating, it takes a lot of energy. Reacting doesn't take too much energy. And it's just automatic according to experiences, blah, 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 just papum, papum, no actual thinking process involved. I will answer your question now. So, Gurudev, when you say intense physical work is good for seekers, do you mean only manual labor? If so, does exercise at the gym also count? Yes, and foot massage after it, of course. Or do you also mean stressful work, like standard office work, that is very demanding? Are you trying to point towards work that requires a lot of mental engagement as well? I can't do either of those, but exercise I can. It's like my body just keeps asking for more food in a mere 2 hours or so. Hmm. Well, I have to be honest, I cannot take this seriously, but I will try to answer these questions in for the sake of that which I can take seriously. Well, when I talk about physical work, intense physical work, I'm talking about that kind of work that people don't usually like to do. There are some that do, but these are rare. Usually they don't like to push themselves physically, and it's quite different from working out in the gym. It may not be, because those who like physical work, they will push in the gym as they push into physical work in this in an intense way. But what is this intensity? Well, is it well, the mental work that you're talking about? It's not that, of course. You do that all the time. I'm not referring to that, not at all, because it falls into categories. So the most challenging one usually is the physical work in the sense where I'm talking about. So this physical work is good because in a very short period of time, in a few seconds, you can reach your the end of your comfort zone. You can enter the state that is intense, is very difficult, where the negativities of your mind start arising, where you see all the resistances arising so that you don't do what you're doing. And this is where your work begins, so that you conquer the freedom to react accordingly to all of this noise, impurities that rise in your mind, all these negativities, resistances. Being able to train yourself to be able to maintain your work, your focus, your awareness in the middle of these negativities. And this is very important because in this way, you're not controlled by these habits, by these negativities. So you can maintain your focus in the most stressful circumstances. So, for example, when people go to an ashram, usually, well, there are some that think that going to an ashram is just to meditate, of course. It could be, if it is time for that. Usually it isn't, but it could be. And in the line of preferences, organizing something, taking care of something, it comes first. So work that doesn't involve intense physical work. This is the last people want. And if by any chance they do it in a very slow way. A way, of course, to preserve themselves so that they don't get exposed to those negativities. They just know they don't like it. But they don't know how intense this gets. And it is the marvel of physical work is that you can arrive at this level of intensity very, very fast. If you're digging a hole, for example, with a shovel, and you're doing intensely, very fast you will get tired, you start sweating, your breath changes a lot, and negativity starts to arise. Something, no, this is too much, I don't want to do this, blah, 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 blah. So you're in the middle of the negativities very fast. And you can start practicing persistence in the middle of that. Then you'll discover many things. For example, you're working intensely and you're running out of gas. Your gas starts running out, and you think, no, I can't take it anymore. I will not be able to do this anymore. I have to give up. It becomes like this, a heavy burden that it seems unbearable. But if you persist and you put in your mind, this has to continue, and I have to maintain this intensity, you will see something fantastic. Your body starts adapting to that strenuous effort, starts regulating the breath, regulating the fuel that it is using to maintain it. It becomes possible and even comfortable. And you wouldn't imagine that to be possible before, when you were in the midst of those negativities. So if you persist long enough, you will see that the previous objective reality, that it was objective for you, I can't do this anymore, it's not right. There is a possible reality. It's not better or worse than the previous one. But there's another objective reality that wasn't in your reach. And that proves that there is no objective reality. And you cannot get that with intense mental work or something like that. You just get drained, and it's not the same, but by far. Also, gym work, you can achieve that level of intensity, of course, but it's not the same thing. Again, to reach that level, it's for a very uh, little majority. But yes, if you're pushing your limits, negativities will come. But it's very different to sit in an equipment and to put your hands in the dirt, to get filthy as you work. It's a more complete experience. And if your body is asking for food two in 2 hours, that means, well, you have some issues. But that's not the place to discuss them here. Diet. So intense physical work. It is the way to get out the comfort zone, because it is outside the comfort zone that the real work happens. In your comfort zone, it's a controlled environment. But the thing is, you cannot maintain that controlled environment all the time. And when that controlled environment is lost by external circumstances out of your control, you don't know how to work in that, and you fall down. When you're the one who is pushing these circumstances out of your comfort zone, learning to work in these stressful, intense circumstances, fighting your own negativities to continue, then when these external circumstances change for these stressful circumstances, you continue your work because you know where you're stepping. You have been there. You know how to work in there. You know that that's where the work really happens. So going through the negativities that doesn't want you to continue, that wants you to give up, blah, 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 and finding that level of stability after that by maintaining the same physical effort, it sees that there is a different kind of peace. This is a kind of peace. And these experiences, they change you deeply from inside, deeply, and not in these just mental concepts, because it becomes a whole experience, something that transforms you. Because there is the level of thoughts and beliefs, and there is the core. The core allows, let's say, I don't find a better word for this, allows your perception of the world. And the real spiritual practice is aiming at this core, an intelligible core. And as this core is changing, your vision of the world is changing, your vision of yourself is changing. Meaning, your understanding changes, what you can see changes, what you can perceive, the directions that you can follow, things that were invisible become visible, and that which was out of your reach becomes reachable. And it's very different just from analyzing concepts. It has nothing to do with that. Eu vou responder à tua pergunta agora em inglês. So, first questions. I've been a seeker for 8 years. I've studied many lines, and lately I've been following Ramanan's teachings. I feel that as the Guru approach, I have been feeling many obstacles. Is there a way to go through this phase without so much friction? And why would we want that? What is friction? Well, it's like, is it possible to put the ice closer and closer to the fire and without it melting? Well, probably there are some techniques for that in terms of physics and chemistry, but let's not go into that. No, not possible. Because what is proximity? What is the guru? So the guru is like the fire to your illusion. And it is your attachment to your illusion that creates the friction. So if you are coming closer to your guru and nothing is happening, no friction, well, you may be coming closer, but you're not coming closer, because this is closeness. And as this closeness increases, just the mere presence of the guru starts to work on your delusion. And it is your attachment to your illusion that gives the impression of friction. Because either you are losing something which is important to you, or there's the threat of losing it, to make you engage again in the preservation of your illusion. And this question, can we go through this phase without so much friction? This reveals still the importance of your illusion for you. This increases the level of friction. Because if you understand the principle, you can see the friction arising, the difficult situations arising, the threats arising, and you can work on your acceptance. And whatever life is asking from you, demanding from you, trying to take from you, you can offer it. It will not make it less, it will not make it painless, but it reduces a lot if you accept. But that's the purpose. That's the purpose of it all. So if friction is coming, it means that you're having an opportunity. And that is a blessing. So don't fight against your blessings. Help them. Take the best use of it. Whatever life is trying to take from you, demand you, give it away. Throw it away. Learn, because life is saying, that's too much. That is blocking you in some way. Get rid of it. And you take it by a measure, so it wants this, so I'll send everything which is aligned with this. And you'll make your luggage very more lighter and much easier to make. But when you resist, that is problem, because you see, a guru is the most spacious thing there is. You see, so where the guru enters, there's no room for nothing else. And then havoc unfolds. And for the guru to establish himself there, a lot of things have to get out of the way. You cannot take both. And if it is possible, then you're not coming closer. You're not getting closer to your guru. And there was another question, probably about a video. And to open space into the chalice of the heart, you said that you need to cultivate reverence. Does that mean solving questions related to the body-mind? No. Well, it can be, but not exactly. Let me clear this. I asked for you to improve this question. You didn't, so I'll just answer as it is here. So when I'm talking about reverence, I'm not talking about issues of the body-mind. I'm talking about acknowledging sacredness and coming down on your knees in front of it. Holding on to that revered state constantly in your heart. And that is possible only through devotion, recognition of sacredness, devotion to sacredness, to God or Guru, let me put it this way then, because then we go to these abstract contexts, because seekers these days, they don't like these gurus and God, because they feel less, they seek a place where they are accepted. Accepted means where their egos can come and feel comfortable. And it doesn't work like that. So revere something. When it is pure, it's like it's automatic because it is overflowing through your heart. So even your body curves itself with that overflow. But in the absence of that overflow, you can practice on your own. It's like asanas, for example. When you're going through this spiritual process of liberation, it can happen. It doesn't mean it will, but it can happen that your body can go into specific asanas on its own. So priorly, you were practicing them, but then you will do it on its own. So it is the same thing. Sometimes there's so much impurities that real reverence is not possible, but you can practice as you are working out your impurities. And the more you exercise compassion, devotion, the more this center activates and starts burning the impurities that underlie there. So reverence is to constantly contemplate the highest, that divine presence, and getting on my knees towards that perception and keeping that as long as possible. Okay. Okay. So for today, that's it. Next satsang will be Wednesday, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real for you. Watch.